Of all the intense rethinking I've been doing lately, most of it has been focused on my crypto holdings. But after that, it's the fretboard, okay? So we're going to talk about some really cool fretboard stuff that I've been doing that might give you a better understanding of things. We are doing this in the classiest key of all, the key of E, okay? So what we're going to do, and something that I've been doing in a lot of recent videos, is focusing on a course of 2 strings going through the fretboard and applying that into ways that we can make it musical, but we're also still learning scales and still learning a little bit of music theory. All right, so again, beautiful thing about the key of E, let's just do an E major chord right here. We're also gonna do this in E minor by the end of this lesson. So much going on, a lot of action going on right here. We're gonna start with E major chord. So middle finger to A, ring finger to D, pointer finger 1, G. The sound of pure class. In fact, I also did a video called Secrets in the Key of E that I'll link you to because it kind of is a good companion lesson for what we're talking about today. But we're gonna focus on where your ring finger is right now in this chord shape. Okay, this is the E note on the D string, 2nd fret. Okay, so we have an open E on the lowest string, and then an open A, and then 2D would be another E. Okay, right? So we're gonna play the E major scale on this string, but starting on the 2nd fret. Really easy enough to do, and it all comes down to those intervals, right? We have the 2nd fret, the 4th fret, the 6th fret, the 7th fret, the 9th fret, the 11th fret, the 13th fret, and the 14th fret, which is our octave again. Okay, so I think it's daunting to memorize those numbers, like the fret numbers, way easier to think of them as intervals, right? That intervallic formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The easiest formula that you can do, right? Way easier than trying to predict the markets, if you know what I mean. Start on a note, whole step from here is the 4th fret. Another whole step and a half step, right? Think of it as just that series of intervals when you start out with. Note, whole, whole, half, and then whole, 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 half, okay? So those are all the notes, right? Now how we're gonna make this musical is we're gonna go back and forth between just kind of droning, hitting the low E string, and then playing the scale, all right? So we're gonna go E, then E, E, F sharp, E, G sharp, E, A, E, B, E, C sharp, E, D sharp, E, and E, okay? So we're gonna spice this up in a second, but you may have already noticed I'm using a thumb pick. This video is sponsored by Black Mountain Picks, specifically their awesome thumb pick. I did another video on this not too long ago. This thing is a game changer. I love it, and unlike when you buy some shares of Ethereum, it's not gonna tank. You're gonna have this thumb pick forever. It's great because you can kind of just do stuff where it just replaces, like, gives you more of like that low end that you're getting instead of just like, you know, the pad of your thumb. But then you can also just use it as a regular pick just by transitioning. Okay? So that's why I'm striking that E to kind of get that interval kind of ingrained into my muscle memory, into my ears where I can kind of hear the spacing in between them, and then eventually we're going to start adding more notes to this without having to think about the notes that we're adding. What I mean by that is we already have a note with your pointer finger, and in fact do this with just your index finger. Okay? The beautiful thing about maybe thinking of these as 2-string courses, as we've done in a few of these recent videos, is you can relate one string to the one right next to it, therefore learning the notes on that string with just using a shape instead of thinking about how they change intervallically, if that's even a word. Sounds pretty cool, so I'm going to keep saying the word intervallically. Now the shape that we're going to use is going to be one of the first chord shapes that you ever kind of run across, and that's just the power chord shape, all right? You've probably played a power chord, right? When you first play open 3, 5, is basically you have a note. Again, we're starting with that E on the D string, and then 2 frets higher, 1 string down, you have its fifth. Okay, that comes from the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but on the next string. Okay, so now I have 2 and 4. Again, the beautiful thing about the key of E is the open strings are all in this key. And specifically, the open E strings on the outside, right? The low E and the high E. Those are always going to sound great over anything that we're doing. And then what is the fifth of E? E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. Okay? So the 1 and the 5 always combine to make beautiful, beautiful, sweet music. Just like those sweet tunes that I was singing a year ago when I bought into crypto. Unlike that, a 1 and a 5 is always going to sound good, right? Now, even when we have the open B and E strings on top, we can kind of like add those to these shapes. And then we get this cool open sound, right? Which is really kind of like what you're doing when you're playing an E major chord. And again, I'm just using the root note of where we started, and then either your ring finger, maybe your pinky if you want, whatever's easier for you to reach. It's going to get easier as we continue forward. And we get the 1 and the 5 of this note, right? So you can think of this as playing an E and a B. All we're really going to kind of focus on is adding this power chord shape to all of these notes that we just did, okay? So we have our first chord, a whole step from here. Its power chord, in the context of this key, sounds really cool adding those other strings to it. Now, again, this is the 2 chord in the key of E. You might be like, oh, that's just an F sharp minor, right? This is how you play F sharp minor. Very difficult chord to play. Even though it's a somewhat common chord, you'll see F sharp minor in a lot of different keys. Well, specifically 3 of them, I guess, but 3 popular keys. But it's tough to play, right? You have to bar the entire second fret, get 4A and 4D. But with this, it has the essence, I think, of an F sharp minor. It can replace a traditional F sharp minor in this key, but it sounds even better because it sounds open, right? So again, there's our starting position. We go a whole step. We go another whole step. A half step. A whole step. A whole step, and then another whole step with a twist, and then end up an octave higher, okay? So again, I'm gonna use my thumb to strike the open E string, and then I'm gonna use my pointer finger and my middle finger to kind of grab that chord, right? So we have E and E. E in the 2 chord, whole step away, a whole step away, and a half step away. All right, so let's just kind of focus on this and try to make something a little bit musical, but still kind of keep the spirit of just going in order through a scale. Always resolve it and end it with some finality with a traditional E major chord. All right, I'm just going back and forth, kind of striking the E string and then either using my fingers to get that chord, making a little rhythm, or strum the whole thing. And again, I think it sounds just really pretty, and it's easy to do. It's just one shape. All right, so let's continue forward and talk about that twist at the end. All right, there's one note in a key in a major scale that doesn't have a perfect fifth interval. Remember, a 1 and a 5 make a power chord. One of those notes does not have it. Can you guess which note it is by the time I get it? Is it the 1? No, it's not. The 2? No. 3? No. 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the 7th note in a scale, in a major scale, that's where the diminished quality is, all right? That's the only note that doesn't have a perfect fifth, right? If we look at this note right here, the 13th fret on the D string, right? So this would be a D sharp. If you go 5 notes away in that scale, we end up with the second, or the 14th fret on the G string. So this is an A, right? So that's where we kind of have to make this little alteration, right? So instead of a true power chord, it has what's called a flat 5. So you can incorporate that. Again, a regular power chord. And then what I do, I just have my ring finger take the spot of where my pointer finger was. However you want to do it. And then we kind of end up home. And actually, one of my favorite things to do in this position is actually ending it like this, right? This is the E, the octave E, 14th fret of the D string. And then again, kind of like E major, if we just take this regular E major shape and slide it a whole octave higher, we get this E major chord, which, just kind of a pro tip, if you're ever ending a song in the key of E, just use this up top E major. And I think it sounds cool. It's a cool way to end a song, right? Let's just take something like a E, A, G sharp, and again, it looks like you're doing something fancy. You're really just playing E major, a full octave higher. All right, so any of these are gonna work. Remember, just start with that E, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step with the diminished one, and then maybe kind of grab that. And then any combination of those are going to sound good. I leave it to you to come up with your own combinations, because again, I'm just here to kind of give you the template of rethinking. You definitely do not want to follow my crypto advice. Trust me on that. If you take anything from this video, that should be the same one. In fact, I run that back a lot on this channel as an intro joke because it's always on my mind. It's on my mind way more than it should be. But here we are. Black Mountain Picks. Please get some picks because they sponsored this video, and I'm probably gonna need a lot more sponsored videos coming up soon. Unless Ethereum takes a big step up. But I said we were going to talk about minor too, right? You can do the same thing in minor. The beautiful thing about E and B, it's a perfect fifth, like we've said before. The reason it's perfect, there's a couple ways you can kind of look at it. Why is it called a perfect fifth? The way that I see it is like, it's an interval that is it's the same interval in the major scale as it is in the minor scale, right? If we look through the E minor scale, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same thing, major or minor, right? That B and E, they always kind of go well together. Just like they tell you to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum together to hedge your bets, but it's the same thing. I'm just gonna keep talking about it. So in minor, right? The intervals change when you take all the notes from it, right? And the minor scale interval is a note, whole, half, whole, half, whole. Now we do the exact same thing, starting on the 2nd fret of the D string, and then whole, half, whole, half, whole. Okay, now we can make those power chords again, right? I'm gonna keep the same shape to do that entire scale, right? Whole, half, half, whole. But you might be asking, well, where's that diminished one? Okay. So without going too far into music theory stuff, if you've watched any of my videos or checked out my Patreon, I go into real high detail into the collaboration between major scale and its relative minor, okay? The relative minor of any major scale is on the 6th note. So when we play E minor, it's the 6th note in the major scale. Now where did we say that diminished quality existed in the major scale? On the 7th note, right? So if minor is the 6th note of major, that diminished one is going to be the 2nd note in the minor scale, which is really the 7th note in the major scale. Again, hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If it doesn't right now, don't worry, it will eventually. You just kind of have to keep thinking about it, and one of these days it'll all kind of snap into place. Joining my Patreon definitely is a good way to kind of keep that going, make those connections happen sooner. But if we're gonna do the same thing and make this minor, we just go to that whole step and then do that diminished flat 5 interval where it's 4D and 5G. Whole half. Right? See how we just changed those intervals right away? And then it already sounds super just dark. F sharp diminished, G, this would be major. But again, we're not really playing G major, or I'm not really thinking of it, even though we do have like a B to kind of, get that major third in there. These aren't full major and minor chords. Sometimes they kind of add a little bit of like mystery. Sometimes we might be making like a suspended chord, or maybe it's just like a true power chord. But this is kind of like the sound and the vibe from combining these notes, right? So there's our kind of home note in E minor. There's the second note, a whole step away. Now we can power chord it the rest of the way, right? So it's whole half, whole, half, whole. Okay? So even if we just take those last three, one of my favorite things in any key is like a descending line, maybe like a 6-5-4. So like. I'm just taking the E minor and then walking it down. This would be kind of like an E minor, D, C. But here's E minor, D, C. That sounds familiar, right? Or you just play it up here. So, like, really kind of different ways to just rethink the fretboard by thinking of this two-note course, just the D and the G string and, the notes within it. Now, you might be like, well, this is cool, but this only really helps me out in, like, E major or E minor. Well, the cool thing is you can always put a capo on to kind of keep this same thing going all the way and kind of get the same vibe, right? So, like, if you wanted to play in F major is one of my favorite keys. You would just put it on the first fret, or again, capo on the first fret. That's just going to give you an F, and then you can do the same thing. Start your F there, whole, half, whole, half. Okay? So again, the open strings really do a lot of heavy lifting in this lesson, but always think of like, retuning your guitar or using a capo as a way to have the open strings help you out in any key. Because why should all the goodness just be hanging out with E major and E minor? Show all the keys some love. So again, that's just one way that I've kind of been rethinking the guitar to kind of make it more musical. I feel like traveling through kind of this way across two strings, but still using those open strings really helps me sound more musical. And also just like the cool thing that you can do with like a Black Mountain thumb pick. Again, one of my favorite things about this pick, right? All of them are good. This one actually is the higher tension one. And I feel like I can like it never slips or moves off of my hand. And then if I want to reinforce it, I can kind of. So again, thank you to Black Mountain Picks. Thank you to anybody who is donating Ethereum into the burning tire fire that is my investment portfolio. And if you have any questions or comments, you can hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.